Gotta leave a good millennial pause in there. Well, welcome back to revops or whatever. Today's episode is called You're on Mute. And yeah, typically, we have our topics are a little bit literal and a little bit metaphorical. And this one in particular is definitely both, right? So obviously in the age of remote work, right? We've all lived that classic you're on mute moment, sometimes like multiple times a day, right? But today we're zooming out a little bit, and we're talking about more broad communication breakdowns, especially in ops. So, delivering what someone asked for, but maybe not necessarily what they meant. So my guest today is my dear friend, Dan. Dan and I actually met a few years ago when Dan was my client. And I actually have him to credit with my my joining Wizards of Ops. So obviously I mention WizOps a lot on the podcast because it's such a valuable community. And Dan is actually kind of who encouraged me to join, and we've actually stayed in contact since. Man, it's probably about 4 years now, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's certainly been a number of years. It's been a while.
So Dan, please, first of all, thank you for joining my fake podcast. I think you were like the second person I messaged where I was like, if I had a fake podcast, would you be on it? And like you immediately were like, yes. And I've never been more excited. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Gabby. So I am Dan. I work in RevOps. I work for a startup called Scribe, which very briefly is a Chrome extension or application that allows you to create documentation quick and easy by recording your steps and using a sprinkling of AI to write up the steps that you performed. And I've been in the RevOps space for a little bit, for a number of years. And Gabby, when you asked if I wanted to take part, it was the easiest yes I've ever said in my life. You kind of have this Midas touch to you. It sounds really fun. So I'm happy to be here. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. And I think Scribe is actually like a really, really cool tool. And I think, especially sort of in keeping with today's topic, it helps a lot with communication, right? You're going to end up having to walk multiple people through a process each time you start something new. And I think Scribe is one of those things that really sort of helps cut down on the communication breakdown. So I think it's something that a lot of us are already using. So it's actually really cool to know somebody on the inside.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously you're on mute, like the sort of jokey nature of, sorry, we can't hear you, you're on mute. It does kind of, I think, apply more broadly in, I think, the remote world too. Do you feel like since we have gone more remote, communication has become more challenging, or is it something that you think we're adapting to?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a skill that could be built there for folks because of the remoteness of work. But I wouldn't limit it to just that, especially in like my own experience. And this topic spoke very deeply to me because there have been many instances where I would be tasked with building something, or somebody would come to me and say, hey, we're trying to achieve X, Y, and Z. And I would log many, many hours in getting something built and sent it over to them. They're like, that's cool, but like what we were really trying to do is something completely different. I think had I not had a few experiences a number of years ago when I was working at a consultancy, working remotely would be a little bit more challenging. But I got to tell you, this topic kind of ruined me as a person. Because the person I am today, because of the mistakes I've made in the past, is so annoying. I ask so many questions when somebody asks of me, And I've even gotten feedback in former roles. They're like, Dan, can you like not ask so many questions when somebody
Really?
asks you
Are you
something simple?
serious?
Yeah, yeah. It got like some folks you know too. Like I'll have to tell you about it. But yeah, for sure. They're like like even like the simplest of questions like you ask, but like I think it's because I've been so scarred and went down the path of doing things incorrectly before that yeah, it could be a little bit of a problem. I think I overcorrected a little bit maybe.
No, I see. I think I relate to that a lot because, and I find myself doing this also in like the communities that we're in. Someone will post a question. Someone posted this morning in one of them, and they were like, well, how's everyone handling lead sources in Salesforce? Right. And so you see something and like you want to answer, but my instinct is always ask a question first. And I always think, man, that's really annoying of me. This person asked a question and I responded by asking a question. But I think that that is the right thing to do, right? Because we want to try to avoid these sort of miscommunications. So I want to hear your best story.
My best story. Oh gosh. Well, the other day, I mean, this applies to like real life too, outside of work. This little habit that I have. Um, my daughter was doing an art project or something of that nature, and she asked a very simple, innocent question. It's like, Dad, do you have any old books? I'm trying to make some rows, I think she said. And I went into like maybe 6 or 7 like questions. Well, like, what kind of book do you mean? Like, is it a book? Like, you're talking about a book that I wrote, or like just any old book? Like, I know they use Chromebooks in school today. Like, did you mean like a textbook
Yeah.
that I took to school? Like, and she's like, forget it. I'll go ask mom. So like it. Uh, these things tend to bleed over into real life a little bit, but yeah, I mean your example about like lead sources, like very similar here, where like our somebody on our sales organization very recently asked for like, hey, we want to get a new checkbox added to this page layout, and
Why?
yeah,
What are
what
you
is
going
it?
to do with it?
Who's gonna own it? Who's gonna
Yeah.
make sure it's accurate? And yeah, and also it's like that's. I mean, I think over the years I've adjusted my questioning a little bit by starting off with, yes, can totally do that. That's easy to do. However, and like now I'm known as the however person. Um, when like there are a lot of requests that come through like that, simple requests, easy, just get it done.
Yeah, so first of all, you're not the only one that puts your kids through that. I my son is very much in his questioning phase, so we go down these like rabbit holes of why is it like that, or why does it do that? And I do catch myself, and he's not even 4 yet. So I do catch myself, and I feel bad about it when it happens, but I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, what are you asking me? He doesn't know what he's asking me. I'm not going to get a good response from that. But yeah, it's definitely a habit. It's not just a work thing, but I want to make sure I'm giving the right answer, especially to someone whose little mind is so pliable right now. But
Oh
he's
yeah.
not equipped to answer my questioning, my line of questioning ever. So it just, poor guy gets frustrated. But at least we're teaching our kids to be more sort of like specific in the things that they ask for, because again, we all want a positive result. So it's definitely, I think, to me, I know you've said that people thought it was annoying, but to me, I think it's a really great skill to be able to question. How do you so I guess now that you said that you've overcorrected, so how do you sort of like when you go into a new request, does it vary, or are there certain things, is there like a threshold where you can like pressure test that the people that you're delivering for actually know what they want? Is it like, how are you going to report on this, or sort of what seems like it's working now?
Yeah, so a few things. I think one thing that I put in place that really does seem to help a little bit is having an intake process for requests. So like if First off, it's easy for me to push them off if they hit me up on Slack or send an email. Say, yeah, happy to help out. Please submit a ticket just so that I don't lose sight of it, which is very true. Like you can
100%.
message me and we'll forget about it in 30 minutes. But I asked them to, write out the request just so like there's a starting point that we could work from. But then beyond that, if there are additional questions or we need to chat about it, I like to distill it all down to let me make sure I got the request correctly. We're trying to do X, Y, and Z. We suspect that we could get there by adding this feature or whatever it is that you're requesting. And going forward, or as far as a maintenance plan, just confirming with them, this is your request, this is where our goal is, and this is how we're going to maintain it going forward. And that seems to help quite a bit. It ensures there's alignment there. I think it takes away the interrogation aspect of a little bit, where I am making some assumptions, but then at the very least confirming that's what they meant with sort of thing. And I think part of the reason why people get so frustrated is because I'm asking them to do a little bit more work when the initial request was them to ask me to do work for them. So I think that balances out a little bit, and seems to be going well so far. Haven't gotten any additional feedback about my questioning lately. So
I think it's also just kind of the perspective or the frame of reference. We work on the business, and usually our users work in the business, right? And so I think 9 out of 10 times, obviously, their responsibility is on us to be able to put ourselves in their shoes. But if they can at least meet us, a little bit, not even halfway, but if they can at least meet us a little bit closer to sort of understanding, like I said, how are you going to report on this, right? How are you going to use this? What are you hoping to, what are your goals from this, this process or this enhancement or whatever? And I think that what you mentioned, repeating it back and just saying okay, here's our understanding, drawing it out. A lot of people are really visual. And I've also found even when it's time consuming, sometimes there's a lot of value in a proof of concept to just slap something together in the sandbox and be is this what you were looking for? And I think that helps a lot, but definitely the work ends up being a little bit more on us to try to figure it out. And then we end up being the translators. Oh, I understand what this person is looking for, because you have so many times where you've had to gone through it and you've had to sort of translate what they were looking for.
Yeah, that's right. That word that you're saying there, translate, is super important too. I've noticed a lot of the stumbling sometimes comes from the language that we use, or different terminology for the same thing. So there have been some times where I had to have played a little bit of an interpreter, or try to get folks using the same words when we're talking about the same thing. We've had people call qualified pipeline the same thing as hand raisers, and one person's talking about it just gets a little confusing until we start using the same language.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really great call out too, because especially in what I do in service delivery, I do work across obviously different industries, and my clients have different terminology for everything. And so I think, like you said, coming up with even a starting point of a common language of let's define what a lead is versus a prospect, or let's define what's pipeline versus not pipeline. And I think that's also, like you said, the language is really, really, really key.
Yeah, for sure.
So we got to the point where you've learned and what's working now, but how did we get here? Tell me the story, or one story of something that you delivered that was exactly what was asked for, but it wasn't what they meant they wanted.
Yeah. Oh gosh. The recent one that comes to mind, I had a client a number of years ago that wanted to build a performance dashboard in Salesforce. We want to understand in real time how these reps are performing against their goals. it was meant to be something temporary, just slap something together quick and dirty. I'm looking to get good visibility here. So I, didn't ask many questions. I'm like, cool, that seems pretty straightforward. Seems pretty straightforward and simple. No problem. Create a few custom fields on the user record in Salesforce, and then just did a few lookups to calculate some numbers on opportunities themselves, and slapped it together. And it was great. It was exactly what he had asked for until he wanted to build up upon it and make adjustments to a few of the different metrics and add a few additional folks to it. So like it was supposed to be like this quick and dirty, performance measurement thing that was on a single report, and that I had to completely refactor and build custom objects for, and pretty much scrap the entire thing because it wasn't like a short-term or one-time sort of solution to get visibility. It blew up into a much larger project, which is fine. More billable hours or whatever. But this is more functioning a lot more. And then like the left turns kept happening. It was like, all right, I know I said I wanted this metric to be measured, but I forgot to tell you that only certain opportunities roll up into the calculation. Okay, fine. Only certain opportunity. That's great. And I put those filters in. He's like, oh, one more thing that I forgot to mention. Only opportunities that were created with this time frame should count towards it. So like there were it's still ongoing, by the way, like still fine tuning it. We're in the fine tuning phase, and we're, I don't know, 2 or 3 months in now. But had I done a little bit more work ahead of time and put a little bit more work in terms of like mapping out what the work to be done would be, I feel like this performance dashboard would be, shipped and sealed and delivered and everything. But, to this point, I'm still making adjustments to it. But we're a lot closer now, and definitely a lesson learned. Even though I thought I learned this lesson already, I'm still learning.
I think that's also a really great point about sort of like when is it done, right? And I feel like it's never done, right? Like we're gonna keep evolving. I think a lot of, we thought that the finish line, when this started, we thought the finish line was here. We thought we were going to achieve this. And then like when our clients and our end users start to see the capability of the system, they come up with new ideas, which I feel like is also it's almost like a silver lining, right? It's yes, it's a little bit more work, but it also like gets them invested in it too. So even though it started out as this like very basic thing, I bet once he saw what you were capable of building, that's when the ideas started flowing. And like, again, having those like visual people get to see it, I think that probably like, well, if Dan can build me this, Dan can probably build me this times 10. And so it like really gets them invested in it. And I think I feel like you get better adoption. Amber and I talked about adoption a little bit and like that user experience. And I think that's sort of a testament to it when they do start asking for more. And it's like the project isn't ever done because they want to invest more into it and they want to keep building and see where it goes.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it for sure. I certainly think the opposite is much worse, where like, let's say you do this additional scoping and all the building out, and there's delivery there and it's not adopted at all. And it's just like, that's got to be heartbreaking. You put all this time and effort into it, and either you miss the mark or like, thanks for building it. We kind of don't need it anymore. And like, I don't know, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, I'm actually, this is sort of just more like commentary on just kind of what I'm observing. I'm actually seeing, I feel like a lot of things that we've purchased tools for in the past couple of years, I've seen a lot of my clients want to actually like move a lot of things back into kind of the core platforms like Salesforce and HubSpot. So I'm hoping that will mean there's a little bit more building in my future, because that is the part that I really enjoy when I get to build something brand new. So there's gonna be a lot of discovery, I think, in my future. And you mentioned like billable hours. It's one of the things, discovery is so challenging because like it's it's a lot of hours up front and you don't get to see a lot
Mm,
of value from it.
sure.
And so it's one of those things where you have to like really sort of have a client that trusts you, that the million questions you're asking and answering are going somewhere. So it's always tough because, there's never really enough time for discovery, it feels like.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it's you got to get them on your team though. You got to earn the trust a little bit and let them know that like I promise you I'm guiding you to a better spot. This is for your own benefit sort of thing and yeah, it's tough to get that buy-in because like I've seen it go south pretty quickly if you poke too much. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, have you ever had that happen? I've actually had a client, I don't understand why you're asking about this. And it's like, please trust me, like this is going somewhere. Have you actually had someone push back that way?
I've had maybe not when I was a consultant, but like when I was in-house, I've had users kind of like, you know, kind of cut me off, so to speak, where
Uh-huh.
like either like I'm done answering your questions, Dan, sort of thing, or like I'm just gonna ask somebody else going forward for this sort of help and use them as like a proxy to work through me. So yeah, certainly experienced that before. Yeah, it doesn't feel great.
I laugh, but it's not funny. I feel like a lot of times we laugh just because it's like I've been there.
Yeah, after.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta.
How do you so what is your sort of like polite but firm way of saying that is not what you asked me for?
Uh, yeah, it's I do try to introduce some sort of comedy into it, and like there's plenty of gifs from The Office. Like Ed Helms' character is a great one to use in terms of like a reaction to it. And like I don't know, I try to be upfront with them, like what you're describing sounds awesome, but it also sounds like something completely different than what we agreed to.
Right.
And I'm happy to accommodate and let's get this like prioritized so that you walk away happy. I feel like I turn into like a used car salesman a little bit. Like I want to make sure you're leaving my office happy. We're both happy. It's a win-win for everyone. But yeah, it's never a fun conversation, but I think it's an important one because you don't want to keep having these same experiences with the same folks where like the expectations are misaligned or you're delivering on something that they didn't exactly ask for. And I'm sure it's frustrating for them as much as it is for me that like completely missed the mark. So definitely try to introduce some levity to the situation. And it doesn't always work out that way. Like I've definitely had experiences where there was like a lot of palm on the forehead. Like I can't believe, like, how did we arrive at the spot where
Right.
like we are so far off from where we thought we were going. And like I was literally, I remember this one time with a particular project. There was no build being done. We were just talking about progress on it. And I was speaking with the stakeholder and like we were talking and I reminded them like, oh, that's outside of like what our goal was for this. And they were like, what are you talking about? That is the goal
That
of
is,
this.
oh
And
no.
and I literally sat there. This was a remote meeting. I was on Zoom and like I was speechless and I was like, I don't know what to say at this point. Just give me a few moments and let me circle back with you once I'm able to collect my thoughts. And yeah, that was really tough.
Yeah, it sounds tough.
And I don't know. Do you have any tips on how to like, I don't know, smooth it over or like turn it into a good experience where you're all walking away happy with what you want, like a used car sales?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, I think I probably would handle it the same way that you do. I typically tend to diffuse most situations with a cheesy joke, right? Like that's just kind of my thing. A little bit of self-deprecating humor. I'm definitely the person, and this is when you're in services work, it's not always the best thing to take the blame, right? When maybe you aren't to blame, but I do find that I just say, oh, I'm so sorry, I misunderstood.
Mm.
And I just kind of, play it off. I would say that um, I will tend to sort of play it down a little bit too. Like I'm just, okay, no big deal. And I think that that's probably my toxic trait, is just like pretending nothing is a big deal. I would probably have had to, in your shoes, in that same moment, I probably would have had to gather my thoughts as well, but it probably would have been like stuffed with, it's fine. No problem. We'll fix it. It's fine.
Yeah.
No problem. We'll fix
You
it.
turn into that dog with the meme where everything's on fire and you say
everything's on
fine.
fire. And I'm just like, that's what's happening in my brain. But I'm just like filling the dead air with, yeah, no problem. That's totally fine. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
That's too good. Oh man.
So I know that we've sort of gone through sort of like the metaphorical version of you're on mute, but I like to hear about embarrassing actual you're on mute stories too. So do you have a good one where you thought that you were talking, or the opposite is true, where you thought you were on mute and some crazy stuff was going on in the background?
Yeah, I was just gonna give an example of the inverse where I thought I was on mute. I I might have shared some words with a neighbor that weren't so polite, and maybe folks at work haven't heard that side of me. And yeah, so like I at least turned the camera off, and had to ask my neighbors to quiet down just a little bit.
But in
And
New Jersey, right?
but in my best New Jersey accent, that's exactly where this happened. Yeah, and when I got back to my desk and realized that I wasn't on mute, I saw a few direct messages in the chat there, like, "Hey Dan, you're not on mute," sort of thing, and so I just left the meeting. Not going to deal with that. I'll pretend like it didn't happen. Oh, my internet cut out or something like that. So yeah, yelling at a neighbor was a fun one that my coworkers got to hear a few years ago.
What was the neighbor doing?
Well, he was working on a motorcycle. Like our backyards are catty corner to one another, and yeah, whatever they would do, they would just constantly like start the motorcycle, rev the engine incessantly for like I don't know, 30, 40 times in a row, and then turn off, and you hear a little bit of tinkering, then the motorcycle turns back on again. It was like one of those dirt bikes, so it's like the real like me. So he kept doing that. I just asked if like, maybe he could take a break for 35 minutes or so, because it happened to be a nice day. And sure, a little bit of this is on me. I was working outside, but it's the suburbs. You got to be neighborly a little bit.
I feel like if I was on the call with you, I probably would have wanted to yell at them too, because that definitely sounds infuriating.
Yeah, for sure. That did teach me a valuable lesson, though. Like, have you ever, well, I shouldn't ask the question. There have been a few times where I've had to use the bathroom in the middle of a Zoom meeting, and like the panic that goes on my face, like, did I mute while I do this? It got to a point where like I don't bring any sort of like, I'm wearing headphones now, like those stay outside the bathroom.
Yeah.
I got to do that from now on.
Yeah. I don't think that that's a unique phenomenon either, especially like when we were sort of like wall to wall meetings sort of during COVID, when everything was adjusting, and like you have needs, right? You got it. And I think I think people are pretty understanding, but yeah, you just gotta like make sure everything's muted, make sure the camera's off. Or like if I have to go like let the dog out or let the dog in, I'm like, turn everything off. Nobody needs to see me in my house clothes. You know what I mean? But I do think I think probably my best sort of wishing I was on mute gems have definitely come from my son, like walking up and like asking a random question, or I'm pretty sure he joined a meeting I was having and announced that he had just gone poop. So Yeah. I would say definitely it's worse if you it's worse than being on mute and talking when you're not
Sure.
on mute. You need to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, being on mute and talking, like I feel like that's commonplace today. Like, oops, you said the wrong word, sort of thing. It's definitely. I feel like the more embarrassing instances are when you're not on mute and you thought you were.
Is there a time when you sort of let something slip in your sort of frustrated moments where you're like, man, I wish I had like a mute button in real life? And you don't have to give me an example, but I've definitely
Hmm.
had moments where it's like, man, I probably shouldn't have said that. I wish I had a real life mute button.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I do make use of I work out of the basement and like we have a few pillows down here, so like they're depending how far away you are within earshot, there are some muffled screams that do happen. But like a real life mute button does sound like an interesting thing.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
I need that. Sometimes it just comes, you know.
oh, absolutely. Especially driving too. You get used to like the colder weather months and your windows are up, and then all of a sudden you have a nice
Oh my
spring
gosh.
day and your windows are down and don't realize it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get the little like from the back seat, Mommy, why are you yelling at that person?
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah, for
lesson I
sure.
only had to learn once.
That's great.
So we sort of on this fake podcast that has become a real podcast, I like to explore what I call tab of the week.
Mhm.
And I'm obviously a person that has just a lot of tabs at all times. I feel like it's something you've even teased me about potentially in the past.
Absolutely.
Um, so I always have like maybe a handful of weird ones open. Do you have any weird tabs or interesting tabs that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, so I the tab itself isn't weird, I would say. Like it's just YouTube. Um so
Oh
I
boy,
don't
here
think
we
there's
go.
anything controversial. But I must say, like, I don't know when this happened, but my algorithm like dramatically shifted. So like the types of videos that show up in like, the YouTube short section or my recommended videos are are kind of insane. And like I don't know how we got to this point, but what is currently like some of the recent videos that I'm working or that I'm watching right now is all about tape jobs. So like obviously I'm big into hockey and what they call like how you tape your stick is called a tape job. And there's like an interesting, fascinating, like part superstition, part performance enhancing piece of how you place the tape on your stick. So like
What is that
there's
true?
a bunch of uh, it's got to be true. There's so many NHL players that like have this weird tape job on their stick. Like Mark Stone has this huge knob that looks like a tennis ball at the end of his stick. There's other people that like there's people that do certain patterns with tape. It's a hole that you could fall in if you want me to send you some YouTube videos for sure.
Well, so I know that you're into hockey, but actually I don't think that I know how you got into hockey. So I
Mm.
would be interested to know, how did you get into hockey?
Well, my arrival into the hockey space, it kind of came in phases. Like I started when I was super young. I was in like 6 or 7. I joined like the local YMCA. They had a foot hockey league or deck hockey, and that was fun for a little bit. But that lay dormant until I was more of an adult and I was in my 30s, and and I wanted to get out of the house because we had a small child at the time, and like I had a friend reached out and saying, "Hey, we're starting a roller hockey team. Do you want to join us?" And like I hadn't done any sort of sports in like a good decade or two, and like I was always a fan of watching the sport,
Yeah,
so I jumped in with both skates on, get it instead of both feet. I
I
jumped in.
get it. It's a good one. I liked it.
Yeah. So like I mean. I'm definitely not built for basketball. I'm 5.5 feet tall. Baseball was just too boring for me, and like
Yeah,
I enjoyed the pace of hockey, so that's how I
hockey is
landed
very
here.
exciting. Yeah, it's very exciting to watch. It's very physical. So it's interesting that, as you were getting older, you were like, yes, I decided I wanted to abuse my body in this way for fun. But I think it's really cool because it is something that you're super passionate about. And it has become like a, part of your personality thing that we recognize about you. So I guess in your hockey expertise, is there some sort of ergonomic
Hmm.
benefit to the taping? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I would say there's it's probably not as drastic as some of these players, make it seem, but like certainly how your hands get positioned because of how they're shaped against the stick, I think there is a tiny bit of performance improvement. Then like the tape at the bottom where the puck sticks to it, there's some improvement there, but I would say there's marginally a little bit of an advantage based on how you tape it, but not a lot. I think they're going way overboard. You know how
Maybe we could build this into an object, track performance based on different taping, and then build a dashboard at the end. What do you think?
Yeah, I have a few questions on that. Who's gonna maintain the dashboard after the initial season?
Yeah, that's perfect. My tab is like actually kind of I mean, they're always random. So I put on this sweatshirt today
Mhm.
and I was like, why do sweatshirts have this like,
The weird V
this
thing.
V thing, stitched into it? And so I, of course, was like, well, I can't ever, this is the thing about the questions in my mind. The questions in my mind can't ever go unanswered. That is a thing that I just
Mm,
know it. Like I have to find out. Like some people like the act of wondering. Like I think they just like to like have that sort of like mental journey. I can't have a question go unanswered. So I was like, well, I have to look this up. And of course, I found out that. And now this could be propaganda, I suppose, because it is on the official Russell Athletic website, right?
yeah,
But I found out that when the sweatshirt was invented in 1926, the V-notch had a practical purpose. It says that it was created to soak up sweat. Hopefully I will not be doing any
mm,
sweating today, but I'm prepared in case I do. And apparently it helps maintain the shape of the sweatshirt around the neck. And then of course we get to look at some beautiful sort of examples of the V-notch on the sweatshirt.
yeah,
That's the rabbit
yeah.
hole I went down this morning when I got dressed.
Oh my gosh, that seems like it's propaganda put out by Big Sweatshirt. And like saying that it was created in 1926, that feels off. They had to have had a sweatshirt in like at least the 1915s, right? If you think about how winters were, especially on the East Coast, and in the 1910s, 1915s, they've had to have had a sweatshirt back then.
It's so funny you mentioned the East Coast because I was thinking when I got dressed this morning, I put on a sweatshirt and then I put on shorts. And I was like, I was like, this is definitely like a uniquely, I think, like East Coast thing
Oh,
where
definitely.
it'll be pretty cold outside. We'll put on shorts, but then to balance it, we'll like put on a sweatshirt. And I'm like, I'm not sure anybody else, like anywhere else does this. This is just like definitely like a coastal East Coast thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the between the knees and ankles, there are no feelings there at
There's
all,
no
so it
feeling
makes
there.
sense.
Yeah, no. And if anytime you can avoid wearing socks too, like if you can just like put on some sandals. Although I feel like, and your kids are kind of in like the zeitgeist now, like like they're bringing home like the terms, right? Are
Mm.
we're like not letting our feet show anymore, right? Like my husband
Uh,
said that the kids are saying they call feet dogs, and they say it's diabolical if we can see your dogs. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, low key. It goes beyond that too. Like you not only have to wear socks, but they can't be ankle socks anymore. Like they have to be like the crew or higher.
I don't like that. I don't accept that.
I'm starting to understand my parents' generation when I was growing up. Like I get it now. Like these dang kids, like I understand that feeling so hard.
I need my ankle socks. Man, if I even have to wear a sock, I don't want it going up my leg. I don't.
Yeah,
Kids,
yeah,
kids
stuff.
these days, like you said.
Oh,
So
wow.
I just want to say thank you again. Yeah, I really, truly, when I messaged you and you were immediately like, absolutely, I like that. That is probably one of the things that made me like most energized to actually become like make this a thing. And then of course I know that you're somebody who does actually listen to real life podcasts on like actual real topics. And of course, I've now found out that you even had a podcast. So there's a lot of pressure. So I do appreciate you spending time with me today to talk about, miscommunication and all those sort of communication intricacies that go into our jobs and operations. So thank you for that. And I appreciate you being here.
Oh, my pleasure, Gabio. It's been a real treat, and like I messaged you offline, like you are a natural at this, and
Thank
I'm a
you.
huge fan. Before a guest, I am a huge fan. So thanks for
Thank you.
having me.
That means a lot to me. So I'd like to thank a sponsor, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the conversation. So today I'm gonna thank Sandboxes. This episode today was brought to you by Sandboxes because that's where all your best ideas go to die quietly.
Oh, that's incredible. That's gonna ruffle some feathers. The anti-sandbox crowd out there.
That's true. Just do it abroad. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. So thank you to our viewers, right? We've got viewers who made it to the end of RevOps or whatever, and hopefully it wasn't by accident. But even if it was, tell everyone you know, make them watch it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.